My guardian angel is tired. I put it through the paces. I didn't lead the most wise of life as a child, and my teenage and early adult years were even worse. I often imagine this kind of haggard, war-weary, beaten down angel sitting at a bar somewhere going, "Oh man, you wouldn't believe what Charlie did today." I'm thankful to have some invisible help, a little bit of help from the universe to keep me alive and moving forward. I think we all benefit from invisible hands aiding us throughout our lives. Today, as we commemorate the new moon and we are opening ourselves up to spaciousness, let's open ourselves up to the angels, specifically our guardian angels, today as we walk down creation's fast. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan Druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello, I'm Brian. I'm a Christopagan Druid and sous chef to the Dagna.
Today, we are going to be talking about angels, which is fun and used to be all the rage because apparently spirituality works in fads. Angels are perennial and something we really should kind of dig into.
I was laughing when you were doing the little intro piece there. It got me thinking that my poor guardian angel, it's like one of those suckers that takes that full-time job. Like, yeah, I've got this full-time job. It's supposed to be 40 hours work week and ended up having to work 80 plus 90-hour work weeks. Oh my gosh, I put mine through the paces. I was thinking of the time he had to save me for when I was on that homemade zip line as a kid and it snapped and I fell probably 15 feet back first, but I landed into a pile of pines. Now, this was a scrap pile of tree branches from a pine tree that had been cut and tossed. And somehow I landed into it and it was soft. Did not get impaled on any branches. Nothing bad happened. Like, totally miraculous. Or the time the tree fell on me. I was out with my dad. We were cutting down a tree to get wood for the fireplace. He cut the tree. I was running through the area just playing around and the tree literally fell on me as I was running through. And I fell through a hole in the tree. The branch fell in front of me that I tripped over. The only injury I had was when I scraped my knee from running into the branch as it fell in front of me, missing me by just split seconds. Times like that, I could go on and on and on. I'm not going to do that because I think it would terrify people and leave them stressed. At that point, they'll be sending offerings to the guardian angel just going, wow, dude, you earned this. Just wow. You worked so hard. So many different miraculous occasions where those should have been dangerous.
I think the recklessness of youth, especially when you grow up in a very spiritual family, does give you a greater connection to and acknowledgement of your guardian angels. Before we get into this topic, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology is on the platform that you're listening to us on, because we make original Christopagan and Druid content every day. You don't want to miss any of it. We've got a lot coming up, especially with Samhain coming up and the 10 days of awe and everything. There's a lot packed into this month. You don't want to miss anything. So don't forget to subscribe. Also, you might want to follow us over on Blue Sky, Threads, or Instagram, whichever one that you use. We are Creations Paths on all of them. I am posting a lot more over there because I'm trying to do the social things. And we're both some people to chat with, so you can follow us there too.
Great places just to post your questions or copy and paste questions after posting on your favorite platform.
Now that we've gotten that out of the way, Guardian Angel. I wanted to talk about this one for a couple reasons. One, as we are approaching the days of awe, the personal favorite Teshuvah practice that I like to do comes from Rabbi David Cooper, and we'll be talking about that a little bit more. Yeah, tomorrow. It involves you going into a courtroom where you are being accused and having a defender. When I do the meditation, tend to think of my poor, haggard guardian angel. That's that lawyer from all of those 90s law shows that my parents used to watch. That's always showing up. Their jacket has holes in it. Like they're sweating. Their tie is a little disheveled. Just finally making it there. Like, I'm here, Your Honor. I'm here. You don't know what this client has put me through, but I'm going to show you that they are not guilty. I wanted to bring up guardian angels for the moon phase today because I think you really do have to make space for them. For those who are new to the podcast, we like to associate the 4 of the moon phases with the four paths of creation spirituality. The new moon is dedicated to the Via Negativa, which most people associate with grief, loss, letting go, letting be, emptying, emptiness. But the other side of emptying is spaciousness, of opening up, of ending some of the constrictions and the limitations that we put on ourselves. I don't think that part of the Via Negativa gets the attention that it deserves. When it comes to dealing with our angels and opening ourselves up to spirits in general, but angels in particular, it requires a certain amount of spaciousness in ourselves to notice. I could go down the long list of saints and sages and mystics over the years that have talked about this, everyone from Maimonides to Ibn al-Arabi, who are constantly reminding us that angels tend to interact with us through our imaginations. That it's in that liminal space between what we know and what is going on and what we imagine and hope, dream for, and can envision. That is where we interact with them. And a lot of people get lost in that because they're like, but if they're interacting with us in our imaginations, aren't they imaginary? No? Yes? And maybe? So Rabbi David Cooper, his wonderful book, God is a Verb, reminds us that, surprise, God is a verb. We've talked about this a bit on the podcast, but God is a process. God is the energy that connects us in relationship, that we access the divine through our interactions with each other. In that book, he extends this definition out to angels and demons, where angels and demons are messengers from that interaction. They are kind of brief blip into being and dissolving back into nothing, energies that concentrate in that cosmic foam, if you will. Rabbi Shapiro likes to say, we are but a wave in the ocean. Well, the angels and demons are waves as well. They arise and they fall, and they often make ripples.
I like to start from a more practical place in my perspective on it. And that is, first of all, does it matter with the imagination? Yes. Humankind watched birds fly. We imagined what it would be like to fly. And now we can fly. Over the millennia, we invented things to help us to fly, but it started first with imagining. And those imaginings weren't real. They were just concoctions in the head, other than the very short flights of like jumping off of something and falling. But it's more falling than flying. It started in the imagination. It started in a quote-unquote not real place, as a practical person might claim. It becomes real. It manifests from the imagination out.
I think Jung really helped us understand this with his understanding of how to do dream work and active imagination, where sometimes in interacting with our imagination, we're interacting with the deepest aspects of ourselves. I would extend that out as somebody who believes that we are all connected in the one life. Sometimes in interacting with those deeper aspects of ourselves, be it through active imagination or dream work, those deeper elements that we are interacting with are from the greater one life and not specifically from our psyche. That's how I envision angel and spirit work, is that, yes, you are still engaging in kind of an active imagination practice in that you are connecting with embodied aspects of your own psyche, of archetypes that exist within you, but they're not abstracted archetypes. It is connecting down and rooting so deep down that you've gone past the part of you that is you into the part of you that is interconnected with everything else. That's an extension. That's a DLC patch onto you. Maybe a mod might be a better way of phrasing it. It has helped me rock what's going on with all of this, because I don't think it is possible for us as humans to really differentiate between when things are in our own imagination and when they are something external to us. I think that's true for a lot of what we would consider real life activities.
Yeah, you see that in just two humans interacting. They can have a conversation and one perceives and imagines. And once again, this comes back to what we talked about earlier with translation. The translation into the personal experience of that individual creates stuff that wasn't there. It happens all the time, or misses things that were there.
Because all of our interactions with the outside world are in a persistent hallucination. We are taking in data, but there's actually a signal processing lag. So our brain is building a model of the world around us, using the inputs from our ears, the sounds that we hear, our eyes, the sights that we see, our sense of touch, all of this to try to, based on its previous understanding of the world and how the world works, to build a stable understanding of what's going on in a way to try to help us get past that signal lag. It's one of the reasons we experience deja vu, for example, is we perceived something as happening. It kind of did predict something was going to happen and then saw something slightly out of character or saw it repeat because we assumed something was going to happen and then a very strong confirmation came through and our brain goes, that happened. But it's all us trying to figure out what's going on. And in a lot of ways, we are all imagining the world constantly.
Yeah. I guess that's another good way to look at that is if you think about in a light spectrum, when you go outside on a sunny day, you see various colors. Different individuals will be able to perceive more or less of the colors out there. And when it comes to the UV spectrum, we don't see that. We have to imagine it. We can feel heat from it, but we have to imagine what the UV light is like looking through an infrared camera. We can't see that spectrum, but the infrared camera can, and we can see through it.
And we can see how the signal processing goes wrong when we see a rope at night or a hose at night and assume it's a snake, because it's safer for our brain to assume danger and be wrong than to assume everything's all right and be wrong.
Yeah.
And understanding that kind of, and understand me, I'm not trying to say that everything is illusion. There is a really real world.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say, it's just our perceptions of it are warped and twisted by our own understanding of how the world works. If you've ever had a conversation with somebody who is coming from a diametrically opposed worldview to yourself, you can see this so starkly in that they perceive reality differently. We have allowed ourselves this weird fantasy that we all perceive the universe basically the same. Some of us are colorblind. Some of us have the ability to see more colors than others. Some of us have really good vision. Some of us, even with glasses, have vision issues. We all perceive the world slightly differently. And that's before all of our presuppositions come in. There are colors that we are sure we know what they are, like base colors, that various languages disagree on. And if you don't understand this, if you've studied language, what color is an egg yolk?
Yeah.
Depending on the language you're speaking, it is yellow, orange, or red, or some variation of those words. But it's either yellow, orange, or red. And for me, looking at an egg yolk and seeing it as red just devastates my brain. Those things color and change the way we perceive the world. If you are told consistently throughout your life that you have no invisible hands supporting you, that there is nothing out in the universe, that this is a hostile universe, that this is a violent universe, you will perceive it as such. And you will ignore anything contrary to that. Because everyone, I think, at this point is familiar with confirmation bias, where you take in information that agrees with you and tend to ignore things that don't. Confirmation bias is dangerous and really is how our brain works. We have to be very careful to guard against it. But there's also something called salience bias. Salience bias is how you deal with information that you neither agree nor disagree with, but sounds like it might be right. That might work. That might be true. And so your brain just goes, it might be true. Therefore, yes. And just incorporates it into your way of thinking in ways that you don't realize is happening. This idea of a hostile universe creates feedback loops and allows us through salience bias and confirmation bias to ignore any good things that happen to us, that allow us to ignore any good news that happens in the world, and helps us to build and construct a mental model where all we are remembering is the bad stuff. All we are focusing on and paying attention to is the bad stuff. Now, in this age of algorithmically generated news feeds and social media feeds and timelines and whatnot, that's fed back to us because the more anxiety we feel, the angrier we get, the more time we spend on these networks. They don't want to make us happy. When we are happy and content, we move on. They don't want us to move on. They want us to sit there and see ads on ads on ads. So everything is designed to make us feel more anxious, to make us feel more fearful. And that feeds into this salience bias. Well, I heard we live in a hostile world. Well, look, there's war everywhere. There are war in quite a few places, but not everywhere. It's not everywhere. Well, there's this everywhere. There's that everywhere. Not everywhere. It may be everywhere in your timelines. It may be everywhere in your feeds. If you are living in the midst of it, it may be everywhere around you. It is not everywhere. Confirmation and salience bias have come in and convinced us that life is much more hostile and dangerous than it needs to be.
This is where it's so important to make space.
Yes.
Coming from a culinary perspective, I like to think of it like a fridge or a mailbox. If your fridge is packed full of stuff and somebody gives you a nice dish for later, you have nowhere to put it. Their mailbox is full. There's nowhere to receive any more mail, any more gifts in the mail. If you don't make space for that, you cannot receive it. It won't be able to arrive.
And so having a vibrant guardian angel practice is really helpful to us in making that space. And maybe we're not getting the miraculous saves that we want to have. Maybe illness comes our way or an injury comes our way, and we want to give into this hostile universe bias that is in the world right now. Oh, why didn't you save me? Well, one, as we've talked before, and we will continue talking about, that's not how the magic works. We have to participate with it. So if we're not in participation, it can't happen. And also, sometimes random stuff just happens.
And sometimes it's just the season. If you plant a crop in winter, most people aren't going to be surprised when it doesn't grow or produce anything.
Unless it's a special winter rush. Aligning yourself with this practice of just looking for times, just little things that may have actually been this unseen actor working on your life. That time that you were late and that you may have been frustrated and all those bad thoughts were coming in, but there was a car wreck between you and where you were going. Maybe would have involved you if you had been on the road at that time. Maybe you delayed just a little bit on purpose. Starting to look for those little places. Because very often when we're dealing with any kind of supernatural, which I hate that term, but people seem to like it, but any interaction with spirit, it's often very subtle. You have to start looking for those subtle activities of that moment where you just had that little inspiration of maybe if I put this on my salad, or maybe if I put honey instead of sugar into my tea, it just brings you to life. It's just in that moment, it is the greatest joy, this simple little thing. Maybe that was the angelic guardian looking out for you. When you start looking in these little things, you'll start seeing in greater and greater things. That's how we make connections with these more subtle energies that are in our lives. We have to try to find a way to open up and make space to see them. Spending time talking to your angelic guardian is a wonderful practice. One, it reminds us that we are never alone. We are always interconnected through the one life. No, none of us is ever truly alone. And so when you find yourself up in the middle of the night and everyone's asleep around you, and all you have is worry and doubt and anxiety, don't pray. Prayer has this wonderful way of confusing us into thinking, oh, this has to be special. I have to say the right words. And I'm not saying don't engage in the act of prayer, but don't think of it as prayer. Just talk to it. Talk to your guardians. Just talk to the room. Talk to your pets. Just talk. Open that space for it to happen. Open that space where you can enter in and start interacting with these energies. Because the one thing that I have noticed in my own life and practice is the more space I open for them, the more space they can fill. And not in a confirmation or salience bias kind of way where I'm just adding things in and saying, oh, look, this is how all of us works together. But things start happening. Changes start happening. Well, I wanted this to happen and oh, look, it's happening. And that's how we have that participation in the divine. As St. Peter says, that we become partakers of the divine nature. You know, as we are always quoting from James, faith without works is dead. Well, if you don't know what the works are, you have to start with faith. You can go back to our episode on the 5 spiritual practices and see how that cycle works. You have to start with that faith. And that faith can't be blind. It might be as simple as, well, I'm hearing that this is a thing to do. Let me try it. It's not just accepting my words or anyone's words. You have to try it and figure out how you can perceive these changes for yourself. How can you perceive these energies in your life? How can you open yourself up and make space for these energies to interact with you and to bring the blessings that we can all have in our lives? You see, postmodernism brought us into this very cynical place where we want to doubt, we deconstruct everything. And that is not a bad instinct, but it has removed us from any kind of earnestness or ability to just believe in things.
The insidiousness that it brought in, where it actually reinforces confirmation bias, salience bias, by going, well, it's only the very physical material stuff. It's not even on an empirical or scientifically tested method either. It's just because it rules still with those biases, but it's going, well, that's it. It's not physical. It's not tangible. Therefore, it does not exist and rules out. It's the opposite of making space.
I've watched people struggle with this because they get so locked into this materialism that has become so popular. They start cutting themselves off through friendship and from love because those are just chemical processes in the brain and there's nothing real there. Emotions are real.
Emotions are a real part of it all.
They have an effect on us physically. They have an effect on us chemically in our body. Emotions are real, but they are the outer edge. They're tiptoeing into the shore of this deeper connection that we're talking about because you can't really quantify them. There isn't a test. You can't go to your psychologist or psychiatrist and they do a blood test and go, oh, here is your mood right now.
This is why and where we go over the 5 powers and we bring it up over and over again, go back to previous episodes to listen about them, because that's where the 5 powers come in very handy, going through the steps, because you test it, you get your data, and you look at that data and try to take yourself from a non-biased position. This way you're aware of the confirmation bias, you're aware of the salience bias when you're reviewing the data so that you can go, this is the data. And then once you've confirmed it, you can then go forward. It's part of that practice, that cycle. It happens over and over and over again so rapidly. And that builds that faith and makes more space.
I love reminding people over and over again. The scientific method was created by occultists.
Yeah.
I find it humorous how often somebody will say, well, Isaac Newton was this and also dabbled in these occult things. John Dee was this rational scientist, but also dabbled in these occult things. How weird. And it's the other way around. It was the experimentation that they learned through their occult studies that they then applied to what was at the time called natural philosophy and grew into science. Well, I'm going to try this thing and see if it works. That is the basic method of esoteric practice. Science grew out of esotericism. It did not supplant it. It did not get rid of it. It grew out of it. The Western occult tradition, the Western esoteric tradition, is the root of science. That's why when we go back to all of the founders of the sciences, we keep finding, oh, and they did this kind of shrine, or they did this kind of angel work, or they did this kind of magical ritual work, or what have you, because that is actually where the sciences arose. We are all trying to develop the spiritual and mental technologies to understand and cope with our world. That is what esotericism is all about. That is what magic is all about, is developing, understanding, and utilizing those spiritual and mental technologies to give you a better life. That is done through experimentation. We're not asking you to throw out the scientific method. We're asking for you to go back to an older, more basal understanding before it was cut off from your inner life, from your personal life. Start exploring ways that you can open yourself up. See how you can interrelate with this deeper connectedness that we all have with each other, with the world around us, and with everything in it. Ask yourself, have you ever encountered your angelic guardian? Have you ever had an experience where you're like, I don't know how I survived this. I don't know how I got through this. I don't know how this happened. The scripture tells us that we often meet angels and we're unaware of it because they look like people to us. Now, I'm not saying that an angel actually manifested to you, but have you ever had that experience where a stranger at just the right moment said something good to you? Have you done that for someone else? Have you been someone else's guardian angel? This is the practice that we're opening ourselves up to. How are we interacting with this energy? And how are we making space for it in our life? What's your relationship with your guardian angel? I chat with mine.
Quick note to share on that, chatting with them, a very recent experience for myself. I got very excited and created a lot of attachment to a possible opportunity in my life that I really, really wanted, or thought I really, really wanted. I was getting worried because I was waiting for a reply and it was creating a lot of stress, and I kept bugging my guardian angel about it and everybody about it. Part of making that space for the guardian angel was actually through the growth work, which is where we sat down and had that conversation. My guardian angel sat me down, delivered the news way before I actually got the news through traditional email.
And what people would call the real
world means. Most people would be like, well, that was just bringing you bad news. Well, no, they actually helped me through the coping and emotional processing steps. Not just delivered the news, but helped me through the process so I could stop that unhealthy attachment and process the emotions in a healthy way, so that when the news actually hit, I didn't have what would be considered a natural fight or flight reaction, because I would have fought. And that would have been very unhealthy for all the other relationships that I had been building up that were good and were healthy to have. And so I was able to receive the news with grace and foster stronger relationships with those that were mostly the messengers. They were people who were caught up. They weren't the actual deciders in that. Because I made space and practiced, I was able to experience it, be an owner of the experience.
And honestly, not getting that opportunity feels like your guardian's looking out for you, because the more we're finding out about that, the better it seems like, it's good.
Plus, as it was explained to me, I don't have time for that opportunity right now. It wasn't the right time.
There's a lot of chaos.
Yeah. It wasn't going to be a good environment to step into at that moment. Even everything else looked good on paper, it was actually not. There's a lot of stuff that was learned afterwards. It was like,
thank God I didn't get that opportunity.
Yeah.
I feel that way the more I find out about the situation. Like, so glad Brian's not in the middle of all that.
Yeah.
Let us know what your relationship with your guardian is. You don't have to overshare. You don't have to tell us anything personal. I'm just curious how many of you listening already have a guardian practice. And if you don't, are you thinking about giving it a try? I would love to know. Let me know in the comments. If you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say that you can leave us a comment, they generally don't notify us. You can leave a comment there for engagement, but copy it and head over to creationsfast.com and click on chat, post it in there, and then we can see it and have a conversation with you. Or like I said earlier, you can interact with us now over on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads for Creations Paths on all three of them. Have a conversation over there. I really like to get in touch with y'all. I really love the conversations that I've had. Y'all have helped us immensely, but you've also inspired a lot of the episodes that we're currently doing. Any advice that you have, questions that you have, really does help us out a lot. While you're over at creationsfast.com, though, if you have any dollars that you could pass our way, it'd be greatly appreciated. You can either join the membership over there, or you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. I'm CE Dorset on both of those. That's CEDORSETT. And that really does help us keep the power on, keep food on our table and a roof over our heads. Thank you to everybody who does that. It is greatly appreciated. We're looking at maybe opening a fourth wall. If that would be a better option for you, let me know. We're trying to be all the places where people are to make things easier for others. So let me know. Alrighty. On that note, may your angelic guardian inspire you, give you hope, and help you to find all of the paths that you should walk down in this world with security and strength, so that you may get to all the destinations that you want to find. Amen.
Amen.